One of the recent projects we were involved in was surveying Scapa flow in Orkney, a very pristine environment with high potential for marine renewable energy. So there's a lot of anthropogenic activity going on there, and we sampled the sites in Scapa flow, the intertidal sediments in particular, and found to our surprise that the load of microplastic fibers was in some places much higher than we found in the Clyde, for instance. So that surprised us somewhat. So it does show that plastic is not just an issue for urban and highly populated areas, but also for more remote and presumably pristine areas as well. One of the things we have to do is, of course, sample the environment. We sample intertidal sediments, and in order to do that we have to come up with a protocol that is reproducible, not just for us but also for other research groups, so that we can compare our results. And MASTS provides us a very good platform for that through the MASTS Stresses Forum and the Scottish Microplastics Research Group, where we have conducted intercalibration experiments. We collaborated with the Auckland Island Council, who provided us with the samples from Scapa flow and who have the local knowledge of the relevant sites. We sample very small amounts using a glass tube that is essentially a core. We stick that into the sediment at the high water mark. We then close or seal these vials with a metal cap, so there's no plastic contamination. Take it back to the lab, then use a high density saline extraction procedure that floats the particles to the surface. We can then remove these, filter the water, and then observe or analyze the filters for plastic particles. And we can then use so-called FTIR to actually establish what polymer type these particles and fibers are. And that will give us some indication as to where these particles might be coming from in terms of activities like washing fleeces, for instance, or ropes in the marine environment. They're often made of plastic polymer. Okay. Well, one of the things that's quite particular about Scapa flow is the hydrodynamic regimes there. One of the things that's happened, of course, during the Second World War, the Churchill barriers were built in between some of the islands in order to stop U-boats coming in, and one of the issues there is that it's changed the hydrodynamic flow of the water, and that creates a kind of eddies and higher residence time for the water in those in the area of Scapa flow, and areas with high deposition tend to accumulate quite a lot of these microplastic particles, much more than we would have expected. Also, the presence of wastewater treatment plants at some of the sites has, of course, contributed to the microplastic load because of the fibers coming from fleeces from washing machine effluent. We were surprised to a certain extent to find specific sites with very high concentrations of microplastic fibers. We found up to 6,000 fibers per kilogram of sediment, for instance. And that is something that we might have expected in a densely populated area. We hadn't expected it somewhere as remote and apparently pristine as the Orkney Islands. It is an issue for Scotland, and we feel that the effort needs to be upscaled through MASTS, for instance. I've already had quite a lot of interest today about potentially collaborating across Scotland, because we really would like to have a baseline monitoring program that multi-year, if possible, it goes for some time, so that we can report back to the Scottish Government and say, look, your efforts, your initiatives, like the marine litter strategy, for instance, is actually working, or it isn't, and what we can do maybe to help improve that.